Welcome to Graham Care's Kitchen. It's really two programs in one. This is a series that appeals to your creative side. Food that is sumptuous stuff. How could that be? This is a program about people who want to eat healthy and reduce calories. Actually, it's about food with an aromatic quality that fills the nose. Oh, sure. But it's also about keeping my arteries clean by reducing fat. But it doesn't mean a thing if the food isn't rich and colorful. Maximize the flavor. Okay, but I must have healthy food that I can cook in minutes. I must minimize the risk. So welcome to Graham Care's Kitchen, where we get our heads together just for you. Well, it had to happen. We had to get around to chocolate sooner or later. So I'm going to show you the absolute simplest little technique around how to make a chocolate sauce, all right? Well, it's cocoa sauce, actually, but we won't quibble about that one. And then I'll build something a little bit bigger for you, waffles and all that kind of stuff. That's what we try and do every time to minimize risks and then maximize the flavor, and then you don't lose so much. You know, when the doc sort of puts something across the table and says, you can't eat that anymore, cut all that out, and you just walk away from him saying the guy doesn't know how to live, you know. Well, here, chocolate. Now, chocolate is something that if I was to honestly tell you that there was something still in my life which needed to be dealt with, apart from just the whole of me, I would have to tell you that it would be chocolate. Now, chocolate is comprised of two parts. First one is cocoa, is the cocoa bean, and the second one is the cocoa butter. And that's what makes up chocolate. So we'll take that as being pure fat, and that's the cocoa butter. Now, what I'd like to do in this little episode between us is I'd like to look at that cocoa butter and to reduce it right down, to actually make a minus out of that, and to pay a lot of attention on cocoa powder, as an alternative, be able to get us that dark, rich, glossy, smashing stuff, which is sweet, and not do us in at the same time. Ready for that? Okay? Come on, let's have a look. Actually, the sauce is really easy, and it's what I call the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sauce. And it's about the easiest thing that you'll ever remember, hopefully. Okay, here it goes. We get 1 tablespoonful of arrowroot and 2 tablespoonsful of water and 3 tablespoonsful of, see, I told you it's interesting, of cocoa powder and 4 tablespoonsful of brown sugar, soft brown sugar, and 5 tablespoonsful of water. I mean, you know, that's just about as easy as anything I've ever put together. A little pan on the heat here, just raise the heat underneath it. And let's put the water in, first of all, 5 tablespoonsful of water there, and just mix that up with the 4 tablespoonsful of sugar, because that should dissolve there quite easily. And see, oh, doesn't that look nice? It just, I haven't quite, just occasionally, you know, you look into a pot and something goes on and you think, oh, that's fascinating. Anyway, so that's that. And then, so I'm counting backwards now, so that's 4, and then 3. Those are the 3 tablespoonsful of a Dutch cocoa powder. Now, that doesn't mean to say it has to come from Holland, but it's a technique that the Dutch developed. And they have lots of cocoa plantations in North Africa. Although perhaps the best cocoa in the world comes from South America. So it's just an interesting thought. Here, then, the method that they use, they put just a little bit of alkaline into the cocoa powder, and it sort of reacts and softens some of the acidity that comes from chocolate. And the result of that is that you get a darker, somewhat richer cocoa powder as a result. I prefer it for, you know, non-fat things. All right, so that's dissolved well together. And then what you do is you simply take the 2 tablespoonsful of water and pour it onto 1 tablespoonful of arrowroot. And just stir it together. Now, this arrowroot is such a pure starch that that's all it takes to be able to absorb it completely. Now, what I'm going to do is just lay that up on one side, bring the heat underneath this thing. I want to bring it up to just underneath the boil and make sure that all those lumps sort of get rid of themselves, which they will. So pop that on the top there and get back to it. Now, over here, I've got just a cup of milk. Now, this is 2% milk, and what I'm doing now is just to try and make a kind of an ice cream. Not really, it's sort of iced yogurt. But I just wanted to show you a couple of ideas. So 2%, all right, that's strange for me, but 2% fat milk, and just 1/4 cup of sugar. Now, that's not a very large amount of sugar. Remember, that went into this little red cup here. Now, if you want to make an iced yogurt in the machine that I'm going to show you, you have to put this amount of sugar in it, 2 cups of sugar versus this little bit here, all right, just the 1/4 cup, in order to make the iced yogurt spoonable so that it freezes and stays in the fridge, and then you scoop it out and it makes a nice little scoop shape. Now, I didn't want to add all that amount of sugar to it, so I'm just going to show you this done with a very small, the smallest amount of sugar I could get, because you see, sugar makes ice cream soft. That's what does it. And so I just want to show you the minimum amount. So just 1 cup to 1/4 cup of sugar. All right. Now, I normally use vanilla essence or extract from the genuine stuff, but I thought you might just once like to see a vanilla pod. And that they come in a little glass jar, and they should be, when you slip it out, it should bend all right. And if it's got little tiny crystals forming on the outside, it's the best kind of vanilla you'll ever have. So what you do with that is you put it down in there and just very gently simmer that for about 10 minutes. Now, when you get the little piece of vanilla pod out, let me fish around, here we go. When you get it out, you see, get a bit of milk skin and all that stuff, but it's all right. When you get it out, you could, if you wanted to do this, split this and then run the knife blade flat and bring out what is sort of the caviar for vanilla lovers. This is, on the point of that knife, are all the little tiny seeds that actually come out from the middle of the vanilla pod. So when you do that, just sort of drop that down, and you get lots of little tiny specks on top of it. And you always know when you get tiny specks, either that there's a dirty factory, or, no, come on, that they actually have found, they've used real vanilla pods in doing it, or they found something that looks like it, I don't know. So stir that around, that's I'm bringing that up to the heat, that's my chocolate sauce. But this is the hot, and that's so, you know, it's sweet because of that 1/4 thing, but the smell of vanilla that comes off it is just gorgeous. Now, I've taken a vanilla yogurt, so I'm actually reinforcing just the normal yogurt. And this yogurt is not non-fat. This is a 2%, all right? So that's called low fat normally. And the low fat, I just simply take this stewed mixture of vanilla and sugar and milk, and even though it's hot, it's no trouble. Just stir it in there and just combine the 2 lots together. There's been research that says that the hotter a thing is, the quicker it freezes. That's actually not true. But it is interesting that if a thing is hot, if you put hot water into the fridge to make an ice cube and cold water, it actually freezes at the same time. And that you'd never expect, would you? Okay. All right. Now, here is the little mechanical means by which you can do it. You might have one of the old-fashioned type. This has got a little cap which you put on to save you pouring rock salt into the ice cream, which is not such a good idea. You see how it went over to the top of that lid, and if I hadn't put the lid on, that might have gone in, and I would have had a somewhat salty ice cream. So let's put down the side. And then what you do is you take pieces of ice and put it all the way around the outside. Pack it down in layers, you see. So you've got a layer of ice and then a layer of salt. And it's got to come right up to the very top. When it comes up to the top, you can then pour in your mix. And that's all it is. Slightly sweetened, low-fat yogurt with extra reinforcement of vanilla. And good stuff. They make 10 actual 4-ounce portions of ice cream that way. Now, you get this little paddle wheel which sits in there, and it's an aluminum can, or aluminium if you're watching the other side of the tank. And then on top goes a little cap once again, and on top of that goes a little thing like this. All right, that fits on perfectly, and that fits there. Ooh, and good, this is boiling now, so I put that one to one side. And then you simply put this up onto the machine like so, and put it on to about 4 there, depending upon what machine you've got, and start it running. Yeah? And then you can walk away, and about 15 minutes later, it's just fine. Now, you can take it out and put it in the fridge. Now, this is the thing that I wanted to explain to you. You can get it straight out of the machine, which is fine. It's kind of like a soft one. Or, here's 2 types. Now, it's exactly the same mixture, but here's one that I had to put in earlier. Now, this is solid frozen, but you see how it flakes? Huh? That is because it doesn't have enough sugar to make it spoon and hold together properly. Needed the 2 cups. But this one here, this one spoons beautifully. This was made about 2-3 hours ago. And so if you're going to serve it, make it just about 2-3 hours, shove it in the fridge, and it comes out so nicely, and you don't have to have all of that remarkable amount of sugar in it. Good thing. All right, so here is the hot sauce. And here is the pre-mixed arrowroot that we did. Right? And now just pour that arrowroot into that hot sauce there and give it a stir around. Bring it back onto the heat and just bring it up on temperature so that it becomes a lovely glossy sauce. And let's bring that up a bit, it'll be fine. Okay, now, some little cherries. Do you like cherries? I love, a frozen black cherry at this time of year. Of course, you can't get them fresh, but say put a couple in the bottom, like so, and then just get a couple of scoops. I've allowed in this recipe for this to put 4 ounces of this together for you. There we are. Ooh. 4 ounces and a couple of cherries on the outside. Good. And here is then the thick, glossy chocolate sauce here. Just stir it together so as to get it stirs just a moment, and then it becomes completely glossy. Do you see how glossy that comes? And then pour it. I mean, do you like this? Do you like on a hot day to just drizzle a little bit of hot chocolate fudge sauce over the top of cold ice cream? Well, so do I. Let's compare it and see how it reacts to the... Oh, you keep doing your thing. All right. There. Looks okay, doesn't it? Yeah, turn it around like that. All right. Now, here's the... I really want to try and do without the cocoa butter, which I've done. And we'll have to see what it tastes like in a moment, of course. But here it is. The classic has 744 calories in it. Yes! Wow, I hear you say. But this one halves it down to 341. And fat was 38, and this goes down to only 4 total grams of fat. Good news. And saturated fat, there's just 2 in that. That's because that little bit of fat in the yogurt. And then here, the percentage of calories, used to be 46% of calories from fat, and now it's 11, right? 11%. Cholesterol is down to 10, and sodium is 137, and dietary fiber 2. Thank you, Lord, for cherries. Okay, now, forgive me for this, but, there has to be a little bit of excitement now and again, doesn't there? Wow. Please make the hot fudge sauce hot, and then the rest is so cold. Bang on. Okay, do try it, and I think you'll enjoy that one a lot. All right, now that's minimizing risk and maximizing flavor at the same time. Now, springboard it. Don't forget, try something of your own device. Now, sorry, and wipe your mouth, Graham. Now, my springboard idea is really to take a waffle, yes, a true waffle, and make a chocolate waffle with a wonderful sauce on the side. If you're ready for that, let's go through, see how it gets together. Thing I really must make quite sure that you understand before I do anything else is if you have 4 ounces or half a cup of ice cream, you know, whatever, like that stuff that we've just made here, then that's about 300 calories just for that side. But if you have a double the amount, it's 600 calories. That's the way it is. If you go out and get a double portion of ice cream at any time, you're doubling the kind of impact. So just get enough to wet the old whistle and then go on with it. Okay, 1 3/4 cups of flour, and this is cake flour, and then 1 tablespoonful of double-acting baking powder, and just about an 1/8 of, isn't it difficult? You know, when I do that straight into a dish, it's hard to let you believe it. That's about an 1/8 of a teaspoonful of salt. So always screw that into the palm of your hand and measure it out. And then 3 tablespoons full of sugar, of a fine sugar, right? And half a cup of the Dutch or Dutched, as it's sometimes called, cocoa powder. All right, good. Now, this you can double sift it if you like, but it takes time. So just whip it up together. It takes just a few seconds. Liberally all over the stove, and there it is, ready to have a go. So those are the dry ingredients. So you can put the dry ingredients up at one time. Now the wet ingredients. There's always wet and dry with batter. So here's a couple of cups of non-fat milk. All right, and this is where you'll see later on the numbers come from. 1 whole egg, at last. And 2 tablespoons full of oil. And I use the deodorized olive oil, so it's just fine for that. All right, and then this, of course, is whisked together. You just whisk that together. Just get all the ingredients beaten up, and then quite simply, you know, put the one into the other, and don't whip it, just sort of write it round and round and round, you know, just slowly, and it will just be fine. Now, here in the beater, I've got some egg white, and that's just beating up there. So whilst that's having a go, in this little spice effort, this is difficult to know how to get you to do this. Perhaps a blender, but these little things are small enough to be able to function in this regard. Got 3 tablespoons full of brown sugar, that's soft brown sugar, and 2 tablespoons full of the cocoa powder. Now this is the sauce which goes on top of the waffles. So you simply put this in order to get, where did I put the lid? Oh, there it is. You simply put, you do this so as to be able to get the sugar, which is so granular, and you sort of whip it around in here, and it throws itself around in this tiny little space and powders almost as fine as the cocoa powder is. So it just comes up. So look, just pop it in there and just put a spoon on top of it and wipe it against the side of the bowl. There should be no grittiness there, all right? Just wipe it aside there. That's fine, just a drop. And then 2 tablespoonfuls of non-fat milk. Put it on the top and stir that in together. You know, one of the reasons why they Dutch, cocoa powder, you might find that the particles are so hard to get mixed up with liquid. Have you noticed that when you're making, cocoa or something like that? Well, if you get the Dutch one, they actually get together a lot easier than they normally do. Now you see it's beginning to dampen down, and if you stir it around just right, just like that. Oh, there's my egg whites, good, fine. And so that's all ready to add to the sauce just a little while later. Just as it comes to the surface and starts to get glossy, that's the stage when it's integrated properly. All right, put that over there. All right, now, when you've combined those two, the dry and the wet batters, you've got this mix here. And I always let a batter mix actually drop down for about 20 minutes, all right, to rest, you see. And the hard gluten chains like this begin to dissolve like this. Don't get me wrong, but just become gelatinous and mix up perfectly. And so that's just about the right stage. Now, in order to get, it's got a double-acting baking soda in this, but in order to get the true crispness and lightness out of a waffle without the fat, the thing is to add these 3 egg whites into the batter at the last moment. And just at the last moment, you've got the waffle iron all heated there, and you just stir this in. Because, you know, even though you've got the double acting, which means that when it hits the heat, there'll be a release of carbon dioxide and little bubbles will form in the batter. You need something else apart from that to lighten it and crisp it. And that's the reason for the egg white. All right, here is a standard kind of electric, you know, you can get the ones on the stove, but they're a little harder to operate. And just a little dab of, again, this is a spray-on olive oil that I use. And it's all ready and all smoking and all hot. And all I have to do is get 1 ladle full of this and bring it over here so I don't get it all over the top of the stove and drop it down. All right. Now, this should take about 2 minutes. Just about all I got, which is lucky, isn't it? And little drops of chocolate morsels. That's the one thing. Try and keep them locked up in the family safe and forget, you know, what the thing is, what the combination is. Now, and this will start to steam in a moment, and you shouldn't really open that until it stops steaming. So, please, it's one of those great moments of television. All right, now, I've got here a 32 ounce of non-fat yogurt. And I just simply took some out and put it through a little strainer like this and popped it back in the pot and put a lid on the top. And then, after 5 hours, it strains out and looks just perfect, just like this. Now, here we get, therefore, 8 ounces of what is really substantially fresh cheese, as it's sometimes called, yogurt cheese. Pour on the previously combined, you know, stuff that we put through the little mincer there, and then just simply smash it together. If you use a rubber spatula for this purpose, it'll take a bit of time, but when you slosh it all together, the rubber spatula will iron out some of the little lumps that you'll actually get in the dish. All right? Good. So, oh, look at that. Perfect. That's great. Well, look at that. We've got steam arriving for this. You see, the big crucial thing is to get to this between the steam and the smoke. There's one stage where the steam stops, then the black smoke comes up after that. But let's watch it just for a moment and get this on. You know, that's the beauty of television. Ha-ha! Lights on. Steam's off. Ooh, look at that. Wonderful. Wow. Just get it up. come out. Don't resist me. Straight onto the plate or onto a wire rack like that, and so that everything is going well. Then just a little spoonful of the old sauce just onto the top. Dollop right onto the middle. Ooh. There we are. Let's have a look and see the numbers, shall we? Okay. This is the classic waffle. This one here it looks nice, and it's got that light little bloop, you know, of the sauce on the top. And here's the classic one with that deep, rich, thick, hot fudge sauce on the top. And this is what the two look like. This is 487. They're quite high, and I told you we'd have 14 grams of fat and 5 of saturated. But look, it's still 26% calories from fat instead of 44, and 50 of cholesterol, which is nice and low, 457 in sodium, that's okay, and 7 of fiber, so we're up a little bit on the fiber. Okay, but the big thing, of course, as always, is it doesn't matter a fig about the numbers. If you haven't, reduce the risk, but at the same time, increase the enjoyment of the thing. Isn't it nice to have a waffle? It's so much sort of family and all that stuff, especially when you're not putting them at so much risk. Thank you so much for being with me. Do try this sort of thing, won't you? Okay. God bless. And see you next time. All right. Look forward to that. Bye.